Please note this meeting is being recorded. Saves a job for me when Zoom tells you. We've got a few who are joining us in sort of dribs and drabs today, as we will be letting people in as we go. We're going to attempt a few multilingual welcomes, so croeso mawr, diolch yn fawr iawn i chi gyd am ymuno hefo ni. A warm welcome to you all. Shun at Ibrasiad, vielen Dank. Very sorry, that was probably terrible. I'm not going to attempt any more languages, you'll be pleased to know, but just in case there's a few you don't know, we will have some Welsh speakers today. So if you don't speak Welsh, don't worry, we have prepared for this. If you click the interpretation globe at the bottom of Zoom there, you can choose English as an option. So all you need to do is select that and you will hear the Welsh language in English. And I will remind you of that as well before each speaker, so don't worry about it. But all you need to do is click that and you'll hear an interpretation. So that's all sorted. My name is Emily. I will be your host for today. You don't need to worry about anything. I will introduce everyone. I will tell you what's going on. You just need to sit back and relax until, of course, it's your turn to speak if you are one of our lovely speakers today. But here to tell you a little bit more and a little bit more detail of what we're going to hear today, I'd like to introduce Garfield Lewis, who works for Creadigol, who'll tell you a little bit more about that network and why we're all here today. Garfield? Oh, and Garfield, sorry, I almost forgot what I just told you I'd do. We'll be speaking Welsh. So if you click on the interpretation globe at the bottom and choose English, a little bit after you see Garfield's lips start moving, you'll hear an English interpretation of what he's saying. Diolch yn fawr, Garfield.
Diolch, Emily. Na I ddeud pnawn da gyntaf, jyst i wneud siŵr bod pawb yn cael y cyfieithiad. Os ti'n gallu checio jyst ar draws pawb, bod pawb sydd fod i gael cyfieithiad yn cael cyfieithiad. Gret, i'r dim. Wel, pnawn da a chroeso cynnes iawn i bawb sy'n ymuno ni heddiw. Digwyddiad rhyngwladol cyntaf Gogledd Creadigol, dwi'n meddwl. Mae siŵr na dyma'r tro cyntaf hefyd i ran fwyaf na chi falle ddod i wybod am Gogledd Creadigol. Felly mae'n gret gael chi efo ni fi wedi cadeirydd Gogledd Creadigol a mae'n bleser eich croesawu chi pnawn yma. Mae Gogledd Creadigol yn fforwm neu'n rhwydwaith sy'n cynrychioli'r diwydiannau creadigol a digidol ar draws rhanbarth y Gogledd i gyd. Mae ganddo ni grŵp lliwio efo aelodau sy'n cynrychioli darlledwyr, cynnyrchwyr cynnwys, y sector addysg uwch a phellach, a'r 6 awdurdod lleol ar draws y Gogledd sydd yn gefnogol i ni. Mae Llywodraeth Cymru hefyd yn cefnogi ni. Mae ganddo ni dros 200 o aelodau ar lawr gwlad yn unigolion ac yn gwmnïau sy'n gweithio yn y sector greadigol yma yn y rhanbarth yma. Yn pwrpas ni ydy bod yn llais cry i'r diwydiant yn y Gogledd, yn fforwm i lobio ar adegau pan mae angen, i siarad o'r rhai sy'n llunio polisi, i hyrwyddo cydweithio rhwng y gwahanol sectorau, i rannu syniadau a phroblemau, a hyrwyddo cydweithio hefyd rhwng cwmnïau os di hynny'n bosib, ac adnabod anghenion hyfforddi a sgiliau yn yr rhanbarth. A mae hwnna wedi dod yn fwy pwysig, dydy, dwi'n meddwl, wrth i ni ddod allan o gyfnod Covid rwan. Da ni'n ymwybodol iawn bod angen sgiliau, mae angen gweithwyr, ac da ni'n gweithio'n agos iawn efo'n cyfeillion yn y sector addysg i edrych ar hynny. Mi ydyn ni hefyd yn trefnu digwyddiadau fel un heddiw, sydd ac a fydd gobeithio yn delio efo materion sy'n bwysig i'n diwydiant ni, ac yn trefnu siaradwyr o bwys sydd yn herio ac yn ysbrydoli. Ac mae yna gyfle heddiw, mwy nag erioed yn i rannu profiadau, arfer da, syniadau, gweledigaeth i'r dyfodol, a hynny ar draws y ffiniau rhyngwladol. Ac mae yna ryw eiron i ffodus o sut yn does dros gyfnod Covid, bod ni gyd wedi arfer cysylltu fo'n gilydd fel hyn rwan yn rhithiol, bod ni'n colli'r cyswllt personol wyneb yn aml. Ond mae o wedi gwneud yn haws i ni drefnu digwyddiad fel hyn, lle mae o reit gyfforddus rwan. Felly ymunwch heddiw, rhannwch eich profiadau. Da ni'n ffodus iawn yn Gogledd Creadigol, bod gynnon ni dîm ardderchog o bobl o M-SParc, da chi wedi cyfarfod Emily yn barod, mae Sophie a Pryderi yna hefyd. Nhw sy'n trefnu'r digwyddiadau yma i Gogledd Creadigol, a da ni'n ffodus iawn o'i cael nhw. Felly dwi am eistedd nôl a mwynhau yr 2 awr a hanner nesaf, gwrando a dysgu hefyd gobeithio fel da ni'n gyd yn gwneud. Felly croeso cynnes iawn ata ni, mwynhewch y prawn.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Garfield. Dwi yn mynd i newid yn ôl i Saesneg rwan. Mae gennych chi 2 opsiwn. Un na i fynd i interpretation a roed o off am y tro, neu disgwyl 2 funud a neith fi yn siarad Saesneg ddod yn uwch a uwch yn eich clus chi nes da chi'n clywed fi eto. So back to English, and I hope the audio is working well and you're all still with me. We are pleased to have our first speaker, who I just had a panic check, and he is in the meeting. We are going to go over to Derfyn Evans, who is with Creative Wales. So Creative Wales works a lot with us at North Wales Creative, and I'm sure Derfyn, better than I, will tell us about the connections and the international connections they have as well. Derfyn, may I hand over to you, please?
Brilliant, thank you, Emily. Prynawn da, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this event run by Creative North Wales. Yeah, I'm just with you for 10 minutes. Apologies, I have to jump on to another call. So I've been asked just to update what Creative Wales are doing from an international agenda position, and kind of I'll talk for a couple of minutes and then I'll take a few questions if that's okay. Emily, I don't mind taking a few questions on things. So basically Creative Wales, and Garfield knows Creative Wales well. He sits on a non-exec board, so there's really positive and growing links between all the creative industries all across Wales at the moment. So we were launched back in January of last year. Obviously, a couple of months into our grand plans of really growing the sector, we went into the initial lockdown with the COVID pandemic. So the majority of Creative Wales activity has been around rescue and recovery with regards to COVID. So our international plans have had to be shelved for the moment and put on hold for the moment. So it's fair to say that we haven't done much, if anything, in terms of the international agenda, but we do have plans working with a fantastic sector all across Wales to really sell Wales globally as a creative nation that has huge opportunities for both Indigenous businesses and population, but also for inward investment as well, and people looking to invest in Wales. So we're keen to grow both sides of that in terms of Indigenous growth and looking at securing inward investment as well. We have 3 priority areas focus within Creative Wales. First being film and TV, which is a hugely successful area at the moment in Wales, and really busy period in Wales, as it is across most of the UK actually. But there's an industry-led group that we deal with and work with on growing that sector. Same for music. We have the commercial music sector and how we can grow and provide career pathways for our musicians and artists coming through is another priority area, and working within the infrastructure of music as well. So music venues, studio, rehearsal rooms, the kind of the infrastructure that allows our young musicians to flourish. And then the third area is we loosely termed digital, which is an awful name really, because that's all encompassing for everything at the moment. But within there, we talk about things like computer games, animation, special effects, the marketing agencies in Wales that we work with as well. So quite varied sector under digital, where there's lots of activity happening. But as I said, each of those groups have industry-led bodies that we work with. We brought together stakeholders in each of those areas so we can talk through opportunities, talk through where we want to be as a nation within each of those 3 priority areas, and kind of that conversation will move on to the international agenda over the next few months. So as I said, Garfield sits on a non-exec board. We have a non-exec board as well, which oversees and directs our policy agenda. And they're obviously keen for us to, when we're allowed to, take some of the real success stories that we have in Wales onto the international agenda. So we will be working over the next few months to identify as a nation really where we need to be internationally. So where we need to be from a film and TV specific sector, where we need to be from music, and where we need to be from the sectors I outlined within digital as well. So it's very much early days for us in terms of our thinking. We do have big plans, big global ambitions to grow the creative industries and sell the creative industries in Wales globally. We think we have a really strong story, a really positive story emerging, and we're keen to work with as many partners to allow us to do that really. So thank you to Garfield and M-SParc for putting on this event. I think it's these kind of events which can lead to conversations which end up with things happening further down the line really. So yeah, it's been a start. This international agenda has been hampered by COVID, obviously, as with most people, but we are very keen to kind of understand how we can support the sector in Wales, work with colleagues internationally to kind of get our messages out there that Wales is a creative nation, and we want to grow that. So happy to take any thoughts or questions on that, Emily.
Brilliant. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you, Derfyn. So I will brief everyone in attendance now on how we can ask questions. So you'll find that you're all on mute. If you're feeling brave, please feel free to just unmute yourself and ask a question the old-fashioned way. But if you're not up for that, there are 2 other options. One is to go to the bottom of your screen where you should see the chat Or if it doesn't say chat, you can click the 3 little buttons that mean more and then click chat. And you can pop your question into the chat bar there. And don't forget, we also have networking at the end. So if you'd rather strike up a conversation with Derfyn and start those kind of network opportunities and those discussions that he was talking about, you can also hold your burning question till then and ask them in person and get a conversation going. So I'll open the floor for a few minutes now and put a bit of pressure on you, our audience. Does anyone have any questions for Derfyn, or is there any comments you'd like to make following Derfyn's presentation? And the first person does usually get away with it because everyone's a little bit nervous, so you might be able to get away from this one for a bit, but I'll keep an eye on the chat just in case.
Yeah, and as I said, I've got to jump onto another call, unfortunately. So if there are any questions, happy for people to email me. If you want to send my email address on, I'm happy for that. I'm happy to take conversations offline, but unfortunately, I do have to jump on another call.
No problem. We won't hold that against you, Derfyn. We won't take it personally,
no,
don't worry.
Fine. Apologies. I think I'm quadruple booked at the moment.
No problem.
So it's choosing which meeting to go to.
No problem. Well, it looks like you've got away with it, but if there are any further questions, or Derfyn, perhaps if you want to pop your email into the chat before you go, that will be great, and we can pick up those connections.
I'll do that. Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Garfield. And yeah, I hope this event goes really well. Good luck with it, and hopefully see you all soon.
Thank you. As our first official speaker, I think a round of applause is deserved as well. Thank you very much, Derfyn. It's not easy being the first. Not that I'm discounting you, Garfield, but it is your network. I feel you had the easier slot.
Okay.
Thanks, Derfyn.
Excitingly, we go over to Germany for our next speaker, who is Sandra from Media Region NRW, discussing the talent from North Rhine-Westphalia, all of which I've probably said wrong. And I apologise, Sandra, for my German introduction at the start as well. I had my German friend on WhatsApp yesterday sending me voice notes, but I think it was to no avail. So thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. And we'll go with the same format. So we'll ask Sandra to present, and then we will have a few minutes at the end to ask some questions as well. So please do keep any questions you have in mind, and we'll pick those up on the end. But Sandra, over to you, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much, Emily. Just a quick technical check. Can everybody hear me? Wonderful, great. Thank you for asking me to be able to present the Media Network NRW here before you, and also before some colleagues from Germany, as I can recognize them from Berlin and Baden-Württemberg. I'm trying to share my screen now. I hope this works. So let's see if you can see the presentation.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, good. That's nice to hear. There will also be a little video at the end, which I hope you can hear then. We'll do another technical check then. So we are the Media Network North Rhine-Westphalia, and we do a couple of things, as you can see: accelerate, connect, learn, and evolve. Since I've never been to Wales, shame on me, and I'm looking forward to visiting you sometime. I took a quick look at the geography, and of course this is not reliable. It's just a quick look at the size, the inhabitants, and the enterprises regarding creative industries. And I was surprised to notice that Wales is a little bit smaller than North Rhine-Westphalia, but also has much less inhabitants. But that doesn't mean you have less quality. You might just have a little less quantity. Also, the enterprises and the employees are a little bit different. Those are not reliable statistics because, as you probably know, because you are from the industry itself, it is very difficult to have comparable data. The statistics are always a little different, and on the EU level, there has been, at least not to my knowledge, a definition of what exactly is creative industries. And since then, those numbers differ a little bit. But still, we do have a lot of in common, I hope so. And let me give you a quick overview over the digital media region in NRW. As you can see, there's the Bridge of Cologne and the Cologne Dome. We have a strong industry in telecommunication with the Deutsche Telekom and Vodafone. Also a strong industry in advertising. Cologne is the so-called capital of television because there are a couple of big studios here and production companies, but also web video and platforms are an industry that is strong in North Rhine-Westphalia. as well as games and some internet startups. Obviously, we share most of these industry also with the colleagues in Berlin and Baden-Württemberg, and also Hamburg and Munich and Bavaria, you know, is very strong in Germany. As I said, RTL is here in Cologne, Bertelsmann, a big publisher also in North Rhine-Westphalia, Deutsche Telekom. VDR is the public broadcasting station here with over 3,000 employees. EA is Electronic Arts. For those of you who come from the games industry, you probably know EA. And Ubisoft is a really established publisher and game developer here in North Rhine-Westphalia. The headquarters are in France, but they have around about 350 employees in North Rhine-Westphalia, in Rhineland-Pfalz, I'm not sure what it is in English, but also in Berlin. We have some strong regional film funding, also television and innovative audiovisual media funding with around about 30 million euros. With that, we are in contact, but also like in competition with the other countries or states in Germany. Most of them have their own regional funding. But we do have some awards and a small film festival, not as big as the International Film Festival Berlinale, but it's quite nice. What we do have is a strong area of markets and trade fairs. Most known is probably the Gamescom, with around about 350,000 visitors each year when it is happening and when it is physically. This year it is digital as well as the DEFCON conference. But also we have the ESL1 here in North Rhine-Westphalia, which is the Electronic Sports League with esports. We do have some awards, the German Developer Award, and also educational institutions like the Cologne Game Lab. What is the media network doing? Our mission statement concentrates on supporting digital media creators here in North Rhine-Westphalia. We are doing this on behalf of the state government, which means that we are funded fully by the state government of North Rhine-Westphalia. And we do provide like professional, also cross-industry, and obviously hopefully with Wales in the future, international presentation capabilities, which will be market and trade fairs, qualification offerings like seminars, webinars, coachings, and last but not least, networking opportunities, like little meetups or anything like that. Our target industries, as I said, is the digital media audiovisual industry, which is mostly games, because that is a strong factor also for the business part here in North Rhine-Westphalia. We've been looking into web video content creators, a little bit XR, like augmented reality, virtual reality. I think Peter is saying some more about that later on. But that is also a technology that is sometimes very far away from entertainment or audiovisual content. Online audio is something we look at, which is like offerings like podcasts or so, that has been becoming very strong. So these industries we like to, or these companies and creators we like to support. And we do that with a certain amount of activities. That is just a quick overview. You don't need to read all of this. Those are formats or names of formats that we create with those 4 focus areas where we try to support those mostly young companies. We don't do that on our own. That would be hardly impossible. We do have strong partners. The 3 on the top you can see in the squares are our main partners that we really cooperate very closely with. Games NRW is a local verein, I'm not quite sure what it is, trade industry conglomeration of games developers here in North Rhine-Westphalia. And on the far right side, it's the first virtual reality trade association that is for the whole of Germany, but they have their headquarters in Cologne. In the middle, you can see Games Germany, which is something that reaches out internationally from Germany out into the world. 13 actors or industry leaders from all over Germany came together to promote the German games industry outside of Germany. So in case you ever have like an expo, a trade for a conference or anything on the topic of games in Wales, we'll be happy to visit you with Games Germany. All the others are local partners that we cooperate with. What do we offer? We offer digital services. You can see that on our website, which is like the media center, where you can reach out to everything about photos, studies that we made available, or videos. And I will show you at the end, if you like, two videos from our events. We also have information about funding, and in case you need to have some financial support, you can reach out and research possible venture capital or credits or anything. We also have a map there where you can find someone, or you can be found. And last but not least, we now have a little app, mostly due to Corona and COVID-19, because of the digital check-in or guest management. But there's also a growing part of information in our app about upcoming events. What we do is also we offer qualifications. We want to professionalize the industry a little bit. We have several formats. The mostly known ones are Skilltree and NRW for the game developers. The Creator Day is for web video content creators, and something like Meet the Expert is where we offer to meet someone who is like an expert in financing, or an expert in legal issues, or an expert in remote office work from home, anything from there, all across the industries. As I said, we do present the state of North Rhine-Westphalia, or here you can see in German, the Medien Digitaland NRW, Digital Media Region NRW, on trade fairs and expos. We used to visit the GDC in San Francisco and the Tokyo Game Show with companies from NRW, but we also do the booth normally for North Rhine-Westphalia on the Gamescom Cologne, hopefully next year again. And in case anybody of you ever comes to the Gamescom, you are also already very much invited to visit us at our booth. And obviously we do events. They are focusing on networking. So you need to connect, you need to match, or we offer you the possibility. Mostly with some intellectual input at the beginning, a little keynote, an impulse statement, a speech, anything you can think of, or a panel discussion, and then it goes on to regular networking. One of the biggest formats is the Match Me, or formerly Match Me If You Can. You see a picture here on the left side. The smaller one is the Game Treff, which is a meetup for game developers. The Content Creators Club, as you can imagine, is for web video content creators, and the Leaders Breakfast is for those who lead all the companies and like to meet the politics. We regularly have somebody from the state chancellery to meet the industry. So in case you would like, I might show you two little clips. One is 2 minutes and one is 1.5 minutes, just to give you an impression on the things we do. It's like mood videos, and I hope that the technique will work. I will see.
Thank you, Sandra. That would be great.
Can you hear me? Willkommen im Winter Wonderland des Mediennetzwerk NRW. Insgesamt haben wir auf unseren Veranstaltungen in Kooperationsevents in 2019 über 2000 Teilnehmer gezählt. Danke an euch, dass ihr da wart. Okay, that was number one. Please don't think it's all about drinking and eating. It is about matchmaking. We had a little incentive with the app in case you are the winner of the most matching people in the evening, you get a little present. And in case you have another minute and a half, I will show you the next one. That was last year, because the Gamescom didn't, was no physical expo last year. We were asked to give some offering to the games industry here in Germany, or in North Rhine-Westphalia, I must say. And we decided to have a boat, a digital media boat, as we called it. And we had like round table, we had meetups there on the boat. And there's a little clip for you.
Wir,
Das Mediennetzwerk NRW,
sagen Willkommen an Bord.
Wir Kreativen, die digitalen, audiovisuellen Medienschaffenden, die NRW-Branche der Medienunternehmer, die liegt uns am Herzen. Deren geschäftliche Entwicklungen möchten wir mit dem Mediennetzwerk NRW fördern. Dazu entwickeln wir auch neue Angebote, zum Beispiel das Mediendigitalboot NRW, auf dem wir jetzt gerade sind. Hier in der wundervollen Location, hier in Köln auf dem Rhein. Wir haben zahlreiche Programmpunkte, wir bieten die Möglichkeit, sich über relevante Themen der NRW-Medienszene auszutauschen und mit Fachexperten über neue Geschäftsmodelle zu sprechen und sich in Panel-Diskussionen über Vertriebsplattformen auszutauschen. Die Gamescom in 2020 ist rein digital, und das aus guten Gründen. Aber unser Mediendigitalboot NRW ist sowohl digital als auch physisch. Das ist noch mal besser. So I'm sorry, it's all in German. I didn't have the time to have it all translated. That was it, my presentation. In case you would like to scan that little QR code, you can reach out for me on LinkedIn or otherwise on our website. And I will stop the screen sharing now, and thank you for your attention.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. First of all, a round of applause for Sandra, an excellent presentation. And even though we couldn't understand the video, I think it was very clear the atmosphere of what was going on there. I think that's what we're all dying to get back to, is those in-person events where you get the connection. Could I ask a question then? You mentioned an app that you were using. Was that an app you had developed for the event?
Yes, not exactly for one event, but for the Media Network NRW. So in case you would like to reach out for it, you can find it in the App Store. And it's mainly, yeah, it was an idea that I had like a couple of years ago. And last year, when we tried to have physical events, we were asked to have the guest management non-physical but digital. And then we said, okay, this is the time for the app. So in case you want to join one of our events, you find it there, you apply for it, it's all free of charge. And then you get a QR code, and when you come to the entrance, it's scanned, and that's it.
Brilliant. Oh, that sounds excellent. And I think it's that incentive as well, isn't it? Just to make people want to talk to strangers, which can sometimes be a bit scary, but to incentivize it. No, that's fantastic. I've got a question for you in the chat. And remember, if anyone else has any questions, to jump in as well. Out of everything you offer as a network, what do the members value the most? Okay, that's an interesting one.
It is an interesting question, because we do not have members.
Okay.
Yeah, we are sort of reaching out for everybody, for all the creators in NRW, which makes it difficult at the same time, but also challenging, but also inspiring. So we do have like a list of data from like all the industries. We have like a large amount of recipients from our newsletter. They're not our members, so they're not paying for any of our services. Okay. And we need to evaluate every one of our events or activities and ask for the feedback. And then we can find out what is valuable for the industry and what is not. So we are all still all the time adapting our formats, which is a lot of work, but it's fun.
Oh, brilliant. No, brilliant. Thank you, Sandra. That's really interesting. Another question for you. Great presentation. I read recently that Armin Laschet recently officially opened the Gaming Competence Centre NRW. What is that?
Also a good question. Yes, it has changed its name a little bit, and it's now called Fusion Campus. Actually, we organized everything around it from the opening of the Fusion Campus. The Fusion Campus itself is in the in the building of Ubisoft, as I said, one of the biggest developer and publisher for games. And Fusion Campus is supposed to connect everybody from the gaming industry with possibly other industries. Like if you take the idea of gamification and you transfer it to in-house education of your young ones, or if you take applications of virtual reality, we had one application presented there, like you can train firefighters with the VR in that area, and you don't need to put up a fire for them to train to be a firefighter. So that is what Fusion Campus is about. It has more to offer, but it just started, so you need to be a little patient before it takes off and flies.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Sandra. And we've got one final question, which you're not obliged to ask, but Nia Bowden asks, can she be very rude and asks who pays for your work? So who pays for the network?
Oh, that's not rude at all. As I said, we're financed by the state of North Rhine-Westphalia, which means that everybody that pays taxes in North Rhine-Westphalia is paying for what we offer.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sandra. I think we'll leave it there for now, but if everyone does have any more questions for Sandra, please do pop them in the chat and she can pick them up there. Thank you again for joining us. Excellent presentation there, Sandra.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we cross the channel. Do we cross the channel to Ireland? I don't know why I tried to do geography. We cross over to PJ Matthews, who's joining us from Ireland, who will talk about the Creative Futures Academy and how the Academy creates unique opportunities in the creative sector and what this means for the industry. So over to you, PJ.
Thanks very much, Jeev ó bailile chlia tá an ahas an bhean seo tróna agus chum fáilte chuig an clár agus an crinniú seo. So good afternoon, everybody from Dublin. I'm PJ Matthews, Director of the UCD Creative Futures Academy. I'm also a member of the governing board of our national broadcaster RTE, and I'd just like to take some time to speak to you about the Creative Futures Academy project that I'm involved with at the moment. So I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully this will all work okay. Yeah, everybody seen that okay? Yeah, excellent. Okay, so a very quick piece of background in relation to this, how I got involved in this project. When I joined the RTE board back in, that was 2016, I got a really good insight and look under the bonnet of Ireland's creative engine, I suppose, because the national broadcaster is very much involved and at the heart of so much that happens in the creative sector, from artists and writers and actors, musicians and journalists and digital artists and production and podcasting and VODs and everything you can think of. And what I quickly learned was that in my sort of day job as a lecturer in the School of English Drama and Film in University College Dublin, that we weren't really well aligned. So I really got a sense that even though our two institutions are literally a 7-minute walk away from each other across the road in Dublin 4, that we were worlds apart in many respects, and that many of our students and graduates who aspired to having careers in the creative industry perhaps weren't best placed to avail of opportunities, or couldn't see themselves, if you like, taking part, or couldn't find a pathway to the creative industries. So I got together with colleagues in the National College for Art and Design, and also in another institution called the Institute for Art Design and Technology, and we put in a collective bid for a Creative Futures Academy. And this was a funding initiative that came from the Irish government called the Human Capital Initiative, not the most elegantly titled initiative, but it was for industrial development across a lot of the whole higher education sector. And oftentimes in the higher education sector, those of us in arts and humanities tend to see these kinds of funding bids as not really for us. So we just, my thinking was, well, we need to change that attitude. And yes, we do have a creative industry, and we do have creative industries in Ireland, and we need to be more assertive about that, and to be more visible. So thankfully, we were very lucky in our funding bid. We got an award of 10 million from the Irish government. and we are now kind of in startup mode in terms of putting this thing together. So I just want to take about 10 minutes of your time to kind of give you a sense of what it is we're trying to achieve. And I'm going to focus mostly on what I'm doing in University College Dublin, but bear in mind that there are 2 other partners involved in this project as well. So essentially what we're trying to do is to provide future-oriented programs in the creative and the performing arts. We're trying to activate collaboration to break down silos, particularly within our arts and humanities across the university, and to develop new pedagogical collaborations with our creative industry partners. So this is very much thinking about new programs, future-oriented programs, which we will develop with our industry partners. And of course, the aim is to situate UCD as a leader in world-class creative content education. So we like to talk a lot about our most famous graduate is the writer James Joyce. We've had a very long and great tradition of producing great writers and filmmakers and so forth. So this is kind of the next iteration of that for our institution. In terms of our industry partnership, we have some really good industry partners, including RTE, the national broadcaster, the Arts Council of Ireland, Institute of Designers in Ireland, Design and Craft Council, Words Ireland, Screen Producers Ireland. And I'm happy to say that one of the board members of Screen Producers Ireland, Maggie Brannock, will be joining us later on as one of the industry people in that section. And also the newly opened Museum of Literature Ireland. So a kind of a broad sweep of industry partners across the creative arts and the performing arts sector. What we've done is we've asked these industry partners to form an industry council, and this industry council is an advisory body which we dialogue with. We set up structures to dialogue with them in terms of advice in relation to future skills needs, where they think the creative industries will be in the next 10 years, and using that to inform our programs. So we're delivering an evolving curriculum with industry stakeholders, designed with industry rather than for industry. I think that's a crucial distinction to make here. And also trying to develop options for people at work to be a bit more flexible and fluid in terms of micro-credentials and continual professional development courses, and different and more flexible ways of delivering our programs. Really important to us. So yeah, these are just some of our industry partners. They're prominent in the creative industries. They're all invested in the incubation of talent and future innovation and new pedagogies. And they find us attractive because we provide an experimental lab to discover new talent for them. CNN is there because we're just launching a new master's in journalism and international relations with CNN, which will be beginning in January 2022. This is the kind of boring governance stuff, which I don't think I need to really go into in too much detail. But what exactly am I talking about? What's going to be different? Well, we're talking about new ways of teaching. So things that we want to embrace are things like assessment by creative outputs, learning by doing, cross-disciplinary collaboration, real-world projects, and orientation towards the creative industries. So it's all about activating creativity and producing creative outputs. It's not to in any way jettison our more traditional academic approach and our academic disciplines, but it's rather to augment, if you like, the creative side of what we do, and to embed that in a more systematic way into our programs. So to give you an example of some of the things, we are introducing a new BA in Culture and Creative Industries in September 22, and this will be a blend. It will blend the kind of the richness of your traditional creative arts and humanities degree with a range of skills around innovation and organization and management and digital and so forth, the kind of skills that people need nowadays to activate their creativity, which was very, very pressing, of course, pre-COVID, and if anything, it's more pressing now post-COVID. So we'll also be providing these students with more project-based works, career mentorship, preparing them, if you like, for future careers in creative and cultural industries as entrepreneurs and creative practitioners. We're also creating new roles for visiting creative industry figures of distinction. So again, it's about bringing industry into what we do in a hopefully an imaginative and empowering kind of way. So, for example, the director of the Dublin International Film Festival will be delivering a new film module for us. One of our leading screenwriters will be delivering modules for us on our new MA, Writing for Stage and Screen. We also will be having a number of conducting apprenticeships and composers in residence and artists in residence and so forth, and using them in a way, as I say, to activate creativity in everything that we do. Hand in hand with this, of course, we need facilities and we need a space. So a big part of what we're doing in UCD is to create a space for this, to generate creative work, and of course high quality social media content and so forth. So I'm happy to say that we are developing a new Black Box Studio workshop which will help us to do this, which will support performance-based teaching and will be a recording facility and also an interface with our industry partners. So that's an exciting development for us, and here's a picture of the space that we are currently renovating. A bit of an aside, this is kind of an important heritage site. It's pretty broken down at the moment, but this is the site of the old Drama Society in UCD. So this is the place where Father Ted, would you believe, was born. So Dermot Morgan is one of our distinguished graduates, yes, so the character that was Father Ted first saw the light of day in this space. So a number of people like Neil Jordan and Jim Sheridan, Marina Carr, Emma Donoghue, Conor McPherson, Frank McGuinness. We've a lot of distinguished graduates in the kind of writing, theatre, screen space in our tradition, and that's something that we can leverage and reimagine, hopefully for the next generation. So the facility we will create will be something like this, where we can have our, supporting our drama programs, our acting programs, our musical ensembles, everything from our symphony orchestra, our smaller ensembles to our choral scholars, and also supporting the production of digital content, podcasting, and so forth. So that's, as I say, a game changer for us in terms of what we can do. And the kind of activities will be acting, performing, composing, recitals, rehearsals, recording, live streaming, podcasting. All of those things you can see listed there will be happening in this space. And the beauty of it is that it offers lots of, I think, collaborative opportunities. It's about breaking down, as I say, the silos between our. It's amazing how siloed we are, even within our own institution and within our own faculty. Up to this point, English is here, music is there, drama is there, and oftentimes they don't meet, they don't interact, they don't engage, not to mention our colleagues in the digital arts and so forth. And of course, now with the Creative Futures Academy, we have an opportunity to think about how we will collaborate with our colleagues based in more in the visual domain in the National College for Art and Design, and also with our colleagues in the Institute for Art, Design and Technology. That's where the National Film School is located. That's where they have particular strengths around digital culture as well. So that's, again, an exciting proposition for us. So just to kind of bring things to an end, we're all wondering where we're going. This all started pre-COVID. And our thinking at that time was that we need really to make an intervention because of precarity. And that's a real issue for us here, as it is everywhere, how difficult it is actually for people to make a living in the creative industries and a sustainable living in the creative industries, and also to have a sense of career progression within the creative industries. That was really pressing pre-COVID, and it's even more pressing now. So we hope that this initiative will make an intervention and try and improve things in that regard. Of course, we're seeing extraordinary disruption across the creative arts sector during COVID-19. I think we're on the cusp, and we're all wondering where this is going to go. A huge moment of innovation in the creative arts. How much of the last 18 months are we going to bring with us? How much are we going to sort of go into the real world again in a different way and do things differently? Certainly, we can see that boundaries in the university space between scholarship, creativity, and performance are beginning to become a lot more fluid in interesting ways that open up possibilities, I think, for those of us in the creative space. And in terms of the new generation of creatives, there's no question, I think, that they will have more diverse career trajectories. Social media content and production is going to be hugely important for them. They're going to have to perform live and record and live stream and do a whole lot of different things in ways perhaps that their predecessors may not have had to do. But hopefully there are huge opportunities for us all in this, and we certainly look forward to embracing the challenge and getting to know our great partners and colleagues in the room today. As I say, we're kind of very much in startup mode, so we're not really in a position yet to be thinking of major, certainly this year, for major European funding bids and so forth, but who knows, down the tracks that might be something that we might think about, and I'm sure there are all kinds of ways in which we might be able to collaborate as we get to know each other. So I'll leave it at that, folks, and thank you very much for your time.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that presentation, PJ. And we know the drill by now. Round of applause for PJ for an excellent presentation. Thank you very much. We've got a couple of questions in the chat, if you wouldn't mind picking up some of these.
Yeah.
So the first question, does business and enterprise feature in the courses at the Academy?
That is something that will feature. As yet, we're not there yet, but when we launch our new BA in September 2022, that will be a feature. Yes, business and management and entrepreneurship will be part of it.
Excellent, thank you. There's not a question, but a statement from the North Wales Creative Network, which is that I'm sure we could provide some creatives of distinction to talk with your students in exchange perhaps for some coming back our way. So already some opportunities to collaborate there, which is excellent to see.
Exchanges are always welcome and wonderful, and be very happy to explore those possibilities.
Oh, brilliant. We'll be back in touch, I'm sure, to pick up on those then. There's another question here, but maybe a little bit too early to ask this, which is what is the industry's response to the Academy? And are they seeing results? Of course, perhaps not yet, but is there a positive result from the industry in the Academy, and are they linking to you?
In terms of the Creative Futures Academy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say it's been hugely supportive. So we had to dialogue with our industry partners at application stage, and they were all really supportive. And we've got our industry council up and running, and we've had a number of sessions. It's all been over Zoom, unfortunately, but yeah, they're all up for it, and very much welcoming the initiative.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I think Garfield had his hand up. So final question from Garfield there.
Yeah, and thanks for the presentation and for this new link as well. Just interested, in Creative North Wales, we're doing the same. We're trying to align the ambitions of HE and FE with the needs of the industry. So that's kind of an ongoing challenge, and we'll be very interested to see how you develop this over the next couple of years, I'm sure. Just a question on your partnerships, and you've listed a lot of partners there. Interesting to see that TG4 isn't there as a partner. Is there a reason for that? That's the Irish language channel.
Yeah. So TG4 is based in Connemara. So one of the prerequisites for this funding call was that we investigate regional clusters. So we're all on the East Coast. We're within a stone's throw of each other. So there's a kind of a logic behind this particular cluster, but certainly the Irish language is something that's very central. I mean, we have the biggest Irish language department on the island in UCD. We've got great creative colleagues in Oscailga, and there's a lot of creativity happening. So that's absolutely central to our mission. RTE also has an Irish language mission too, and of course we would welcome any collaboration with TG4. This Creative Futures Academy again is a kind of a first iteration of something. There is the possibility that it may become a national initiative depending on how we get on in the first 4 years. So it's not about being exclusive, but really just kind of being, I suppose, wise about how we pilot and how we test, I guess, in the first phase.
Yeah, I understand, and thanks for that, and best wishes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Garfield, and thank you, PJ. Are you staying around for the networking at the end, PJ?
Yes, I am, yes.
Oh, perfect. There we go. So any more questions or collaborations, there'll be plenty of opportunity to pick those up after, and thank you again. We head back to Germany now for our next speaker, Stephanie Larsen from AI Berlin Brandenburg. And I'm not sure if Peter from AI Berlin Brandenburg is joining you as well. I know he's on the call. No problem. Over then to Stephanie, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Larsen, but I'm not from Berlin Brandenburg.
Oh, my apologies.
I am the cluster manager of the AMCRS, which is located in the southwest of Germany, Baden-Württemberg. So Stuttgart region. Okay, so I am presenting you. Can I share my?
You should be able to if you go to share screen at the bottom. I'll let you know if that comes up.
Okay.
Perfect.
So, I'm the cluster manager of the M-SParc, and the M-SParc is a network of, at the moment, 31 members. The members are, on one side, we have 5 academies and universities for film, media, and music design. There is, for example, the Film Academy of Baden-Württemberg. There is the State University of Applied Sciences in Stuttgart. Then we have the State University of Applied Sciences in Offenburg, both here with the studies of audiovisual media. Then there is a music academy or music university in Trossingen. They are in our network because they have a special studies for audio design that are specialized on games and animation. That's why we took them in our cluster, or invited them in our cluster. And then, of course, the University of Tübingen with the Institute of Media Studies. All the other members are 26 studios or companies of all sizes. All sizes means from 4 employees to more than 100, and they all work in the field of animation, of visual effects, of games, of interactive media. And all together at the moment with all these members, we are more than 1,000 people in that cluster. I've been doing this job since summer 2016. So that means I'm in my 5th year at the moment. And the initiative was founded in 2009 by the MFG, the Film Fund of Baden-Württemberg. I'm based in Stuttgart. The MFG, the Film Fund, is also based in Stuttgart. Stuttgart is the capital of the region of Baden-Württemberg. And so we are covering studios and the companies and also the universities in the Stuttgart area, but all over Baden-Württemberg. So here you can see where Baden-Württemberg is. It's the yellow dots in the southwest of Germany. Germany is the gray part that you can see. In the past 3 years, all the institutions and studios that are in this network, they have been doubling the turnover. Another fun fact is that we are working on the fact that we have equal men-women gender in the cluster. 59% of these 1,000, a little bit more over 1,000 people that are in the cluster graduated from universities here in that region, in that state. And 83% of all these people graduated from universities and academies.
I'm very sorry to cut across you. Sorry, Angela, I was going to say the same thing, I think. We're not seeing your slides change. If they're not meant to, that's okay, but just to let you know, we're only seeing it says AM-SParc Heroes.
Oh, you don't see it's changed?
No, I'm afraid.
It says on the bottom.
It might be a technical issue. If not, don't worry, we're definitely getting it from what you're saying anyway, but just
no. It would be a pity. It would be a pity. So I try it again. I try it again. Sorry.
No, don't worry at all.
Huh. You see?
Ah, there we go. We see a different one now.
You see a different one?
Yes. It's a map that we see now.
Do you see this?
Yes, it's changing now. Yes, perfect.
Oh, okay, super.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. I'm sorry it didn't work out. So that's Zoom. That's virtual conferences. So sometimes something doesn't work out. So the key aspects of the AM-SParc are, as I said, animation, it's visual effects, it's games and interactive, and of course, a very important part becoming more and more important is research and development, because as I said, we also have games and interactive media, and there is a research and development department at the Film Academy in Ludwigsburg, but also at the University of Media in Stuttgart. And we've been working with cluster members and the research and development departments doing internal cluster or working on internal cluster innovations to develop things up. So we do have a mission statement, and we created the mission statement about 4 years ago. And in the mission statement, we say that we would like to become a leading European region for animation media with a very high creative, artistic, and technological level. And because of the creative and technological quality and the regional support that we have from the Film Fund, and because we are also cooperating with various sectors, we are producing in-house productions, but they also work as service providers, for example, or especially in the field of VFX and also animation. So that's why we are working to become one of the leading European regions for the animation and media market. What do we do to realize this mission statement? We are securing the education. This is why we are having members that are universities or academies or film schools. We are connecting with economic sectors that are outside of the animation and media world. We are supporting people that are working on their own IP, on their own intellectual property. We try to reduce the fact that a lot of these talents, after they finish school, that they would love to go someplace else, especially Berlin. We are creating competition equally national as well as international. And we are trying to create a USP by having a cluster like we do. The AMCRS works in the way that we have a board, and the board is re-elected every 2 years. It consists of 10 members of the cluster companies and institutions. We always have a meeting 2 or 3 weeks before the General Assembly, and the MFG is also in the board and represents 1 vote. And 4 or 5 times a year we have the General Assembly, where we all meet with all the cluster members. Every member, no matter if it's a studio, a company, or a university, and no matter how big they are, they have 1 vote. And also here, the Film Fund also has 1 vote. And within, because there are so many different subjects that are important for the cluster members, we always have task forces who work on certain subjects. At the moment, we have 4 task forces. One of them is a recruiting task force, where we are trying to find out how can we get talents from anywhere else to the region of Baden-Württemberg. Then we have a task force IP. We also created an IP forum. Tomorrow there will be another IP forum. The IP forum for the intellectual property works that way that anybody who is living in Baden-Württemberg can present their idea that is within the animation, games, or interactive media in front of a jury, and he or she gets feedback, and we try to connect them within our network, so the IP, the idea the person has can be developed in a project that might probably be successful. Then we, as I said before, with the research and development departments of the Film Academy and the University of Media in Stuttgart, we develop a cluster internal innovation at the moment. That's also one of the task forces. And we also have a research and development task force that's working on new technological projects. Who are the members? Here you see the logos of certain members. For example, Pixomondo, a lot of people know Pixomondo. They are doing visual effects. They have been working on Game of Thrones, the visual effects of Game of Thrones, as well as Makevision worked on Game of Thrones. Then we have Lux Film, who have been working on the visual effects of Grand Budapest Hotel. So we have Scanline, that is one of the oldest VFX studios in Germany. They were founded in Munich more than 30 years ago. They are also located here in Stuttgart. And so there are a lot of these VFX companies are working for international cinema productions. But then we also have companies like, for example, up here, I don't know if you can see it, Studio Filmbilder, who are working on series for kids for more than 30 years, and they're selling these series successfully to more than 100 countries in the world. So this is just to give you an idea who is part of the cluster. Here are some of the awards that have been won by cluster members. We are super happy, of course, that we already have won one Academy Award and several Emmys. So, of course, everybody's happy if you win something like that. And then one of our members is also a festival organization. So we are also organizing events. And one of the events you might probably know is the FMX. It's a conference that takes place every year here in Stuttgart. Of course, because of Corona this year and last year, everything was online. And then there is the International Animation Festival of Stuttgart that's also being organized. And animation production days, IP forum I just told you about that we are having tomorrow. And then there's Rownd, which means is more in the field of 3D communication. That means scenography in all different ways. And we also created a certain format that's called Tech Talks, where people who are working on several aspects of research and development, they are talking about the stuff they are working on, and other techies or nerds listen to it and are happy to share the news. So that's all there is about of the AMCRS. Are there any questions?
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Stephanie. Apologies again for the misintroduction there, but you won it back. That was an excellent presentation.
No, it's fine.
Really engaging. Thank you. Oh, round of applause. I almost forgot for Stephanie. Thank you very much. We already have a question. Oh, I've lost it in my chat. Hold on. It is from Jane Lambert, who, now I will tell you, we know Jane. Jane is an IP lawyer, and she asks, what do you mean by sustainable IP that you mentioned in your presentation?
If a sustainable IP, we think of as sustainable IP if an idea will be in the end a project, like a series or a film or a certain game or a certain interactive appliance. Yeah, then it's sustainable. Then it's not just an idea, but something comes out of it in the end. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. I hope that answers your question, Jane. If we have any other questions for Stephanie, please either unmute yourself and ask them or put them in the chat. But I think everyone's a little bit shy today. We're getting a lot of questions in the chat. No, I think that's everyone. And Stephanie, will you be joining us for the networking at the end?
No, I'm sorry, no, because I have another presentation that already started 6 minutes ago.
Let you go then, Stephanie.
and somebody
thank you very much for joining us.
And I said I will be coming at 4:15.
Oh, there we go.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you for joining us and for taking the time.
Thank you.
Good luck with your next presentation.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Next, we have Catherine Marston from Welsh Higher Education Brussels, I hope, Catherine, are you with us today?
Hello, hi.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
I have your presentation. Would you like me to share it, or are you going to try and share it yourself as well?
I'll try to share it, yes, hopefully.
No problem.
Let's give it
It's
a
not
whirl.
the most stressful bit. Once you've done that, you know the hard part's out of the way.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll find it. There we go. Okay, let me know if you're seeing something.
Perfect, without a hitch. Well done. Feel.
Right, I'll go into slideshow view, hopefully. Okay, right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to join you this afternoon. I'm based in the Welsh Higher Education Brussels office, WEB for short. So I'm going to highlight some of the European opportunities and the policy developments around cultural and creative industries, some of the support that colleagues in Wales can get from WEB, and also for colleagues joining us from Ireland and from Germany, the connections that we have in Brussels with colleagues representing Irish and German organisations as well. So that's just the areas I'm going to cover. Firstly, I guess, and I know there's a colleague here from Welsh Government already around the Welsh Government international strategy. We've got high level support in Wales from the Welsh Government for increasing international engagement, and within that strategy there is a focus on the creative industries, so that's helpful, and there's also an emphasis on European engagement with key partners including Ireland and Germany, and the link at the bottom of the slide should take you to the Welsh Government international strategy if you want to look into that further. WEB, we're funded by all Welsh universities and the Higher Education Funding Council for Wales, and we support universities in their European engagement. We're networked with a variety of European institutions, with organisations based in Brussels, representative offices, pretty much everybody in every sector has an office in Brussels. And we're located in Wales House alongside the Welsh Government EU office. And in normal times, we can offer a space at the heart of Brussels for meetings, events, project workshops, and so on. And at the end of 2019, we were able to host a cluster for a series of meetings and a seminar in Brussels, which I think they found useful in taking their European engagement forward. So hopefully we can return to hosting people at some point soon. Right, the main focus of our activity at the moment is the Horizon Europe programme, which is the big innovation programme. It has a budget of over 95 billion for the next 7 years. The budget will actually increase a bit as contributions from associate countries, not member states, are added to it. So we expect the total budget to perhaps be about 110, perhaps even 115 billion over the 7 years. The programme provides funding for both individual research and for collaborative research with partners in consortia. And if you haven't heard already, the UK, despite leaving the European Union, the UK will associate to the Horizon Europe programme, and our engagement in the programme will be on very similar lines to our engagements with Horizon 2020. So for colleagues in Ireland and Germany, if you want to work with organisations based in the UK and particularly in Wales, obviously we can join the programme, we can participate, we can coordinate projects, and we can be members of projects as well. So here's just a bit more detail on Horizon Europe, and you can see I've circled two particular areas of the programme. Within Pillar 2, which is the Global Challenges part, which is where you work in teams with colleagues from organisations in a number of different countries, there is a specific theme on culture, creativity and inclusive society. And then in Pillar 3, which is around developing more innovative Europe and more competitive Europe, there is an area in the European Institute of Innovation and Technology which focuses on, or which will focus on, the cultural and creative industries. So there's 2 areas of the programme that it's probably important to keep an eye on over the next few years. So focusing particularly on, as I mentioned, Pillar 2 and Cluster 2 with the title of Culture, Creativity and Inclusive Society. And last month, the calls for projects in this area were published for the calls which will have deadlines at the end of this year and in 2022. And there's 3 research destinations, and the one that's probably of particular interest to colleagues on this call is the innovative research on the European cultural heritage and the cultural and creative industries. And when you get the slides, if you click on that link, it should take you to the work programme, which will enable you to look at those calls in more detail. And there's 6 calls with deadlines towards the end of this year and 10 calls with deadlines next year. And the calls are fairly varied in their coverage, but there are specific calls around digital work, around film in Europe, and also around gaming as well. So if those areas are of interest, it's probably worth having a look at the work programme. The money available, over 264 million euros available for those two years of the work programme. And also in the work programme, it's important to note, particularly for colleagues in Ireland and Germany, that the European Commission is particularly emphasising that Horizon Europe funding should also work in synergy with other European funding programmes, such as Creative Europe, such as Erasmus+, such as structural funds. Obviously for colleagues in Wales, we are not in Creative Europe, we're not in Erasmus+, and we do not have access to structural funds in the next budget period. So that's an issue to think about, but for colleagues in Ireland and Germany, it is expected that the different EU funding programmes should work alongside each other to achieve maximum impact. Just a bit of information, the different types of Horizon Europe actions that can go on. I guess the one that might be particularly interesting, there's the research one, which focuses on kind of more fundamental research, and then the coordination and support actions, which is around networks, building networks, collaboration, exchange, and so on. Whereas the innovation one is more around activities which are closer to market. And at the bottom there in italics is just the information on the criteria that the Commission uses to award funding, so excellence, impact, and the efficiency of your implementation proposals. Turning back to the other part of Horizon Europe that I mentioned, within the EIT, the Pillar 3 of Horizon Europe, there's going to be a call in which will open this autumn for a new knowledge and innovation community, a KIC, in the cultural and creative industries. This follows a number of other KICs in climate, mobility, energy and food and so on, but the next KIC will be in the cultural and creative industries. I guess the European Commission has said it's aware of both the huge economic value of the cultural and creative industries to Europe, and also the particular difficulties that the sector has faced since the start of the pandemic. So what does the KIC aim to do? It aims to support innovation, create a kind of ecosystem for activities, innovation activities. It aims to build capacity in particular sectors, improve competitiveness, and also link kind of education and education in entrepreneurship and so on. The definition of the sector is very broad, so museums, heritage, creative film, media, gaming, and so on. It's a very broad definition. There's no fixed budget for the call, but there's potentially up to 290 million euros available, so quite a lot of money. And the link there is to a networking platform which is open at the moment for people to express interest in this call and in particular areas within the cultural and creative industries. So there's consortia being formed at the moment to bid, but we think there'll also be opportunities to participate later if you're not in a consortium from the start. Just touching on the connections we have with Ireland. Ireland and Wales have a specific what's called Interreg programme, which supports collaboration between Ireland and Wales, funded from the European Commission. That will conclude in about 2023-24 with the end of funding, and there won't be a new Ireland-Wales programme, as obviously the UK has left the EU. But that programme has included support for work in culture and cultural heritage. There's also a number of collaborations which have happened through the Horizon 2020 programme. And you may be aware of the Irish Government and Welsh Government Joint Action Plan, which was published in March this year, which identifies a number of key areas where both countries should work more closely together, and that includes education, research and culture. And you can just see there's obviously high-level government structures as well to support that. And in Brussels, we work closely with our colleagues in the Irish Region's European Office. Wales and Germany, there's a lot of collaborations between Welsh and German universities, but we also know there's many collaborations between Welsh businesses, German businesses, Welsh universities, German businesses, and research organisations and so on. And you may have touched on this already, but Wales and Germany 2021 this year has been an opportunity to focus on the connections between Wales and Germany in business, arts, education and research. And I know Cluster featured within the programme with the launch of their partnership with MFG in Baden-Württemberg last month, I think it was, on dance and digital work. And again, a lot of high-level engagement between governments, and from our perspective in Brussels, we have close links with a lot of German regions and cities and university offices in Brussels as well. So coming to the end of my presentation, yes, the UK isn't in Erasmus Plus and it isn't in Creative Europe, but the Welsh Government has announced a new programme to fill in some of the gaps, and around that there will be support for the mobility of both students and staff to and from Wales in the university sector, but we hope it will be possible to make connections to other sectors as well, and there'll be high-level Welsh Government support for supporting international collaborations and partnerships with a focus on Europe. So looking ahead, I guess the position looks brighter than it perhaps did at some points over the last 4 years. We've got participation in Horizon Europe, we've got the new Welsh International Learning Exchange Programme. As the evidence of this call shows, bilateral relationships are increasingly important. I think Wales has a strategy of engaging with key partners in Europe, and Ireland and Germany are two of those key partners. Also using multi-regional networks, you might be aware of something, the 4 Motors regions, which connect particular regions, Baden-Württemberg included, and Wales. As well as, you know, we're using lots of informal networks and platforms and events to highlight that Wales is open to collaboration. We're keen to collaborate, we're keen to build on our links with partners across Europe. And there will be opportunities for colleagues in Wales to work and continue to work with their partners, but we probably need to work harder now that we're out of the formal structures, and think a bit more systematically about how we engage, but we hope there's lots of opportunities. So to conclude, if you want to contact me or to find out more about our work, or if you want to come and visit us in Brussels or use our space when we're allowed to, then do get in touch.
Brilliant. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you, Catherine. Round of applause for Catherine. Da iawn. Is there any questions? I haven't had any in the chat yet, but is there any questions for Catherine? And again, remember, you can take yourselves off mute if you like, but otherwise pop the question in the chat for me. And Catherine, are you sticking around for the networking as well?
I'm afraid I've got to go and collect some people from their holiday camp, so
Fair enough. You've got an excuse. That's okay.
Thank you.
Garfield has a question for you, though, if I can hand over to Garfield.
Oh, thanks, and thanks for the presentation. It's yeah, so much information there that I didn't know previously. It was my ignorance, possibly, but many thanks. And just a question on Horizon Europe. You mentioned funding for collaborative research. Is that collaborative work between universities, or could that be collaborative between a university and, say, a production company?
Yep. I should have. I think I had it in my notes to make that point, but I forgot. Yes, Horizon Europe. There's a lot of focus on universities, and from our perspective, obviously working with universities. But no, the programme's open to all legal entities in the member states and associated countries as well. So yes, SMEs participate, larger businesses participate, research organisations, Welsh Government does, local authorities, health boards, whole variety. So yes, universities do tend to I guess be successful in getting a lot of the awards, but they also are keen to work with a range of organisations in projects. So yes, it's open to all sorts of organisations.
Lovely, diolch yn fawr. Thanks.
Brilliant. Have we any more questions? I think we're okay. Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for taking the time to present to us, Catherine. I think we all learned quite a lot from that, so it's definitely going to help us all.
Well, no worries. Well, do get in touch if you've got further queries or want to come and visit us in Brussels, and I hope the rest of your event goes well. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you, Catherine. Excellent. I'm just busy making slight changes to the agenda because I know a few speakers have to leave. So we're heading over back to Germany, and at the risk of me upsetting international relations, I think we're going to go to Angela Frank from MFG Baden-Württemberg, and then we're going to go to Peter, AI Berlin Brandenburg. But if any of that is wrong, I'm sure someone will correct me, and then Peter has to leave us. So everyone seems smiling and Angela's happy, so I'm going to hand over to Angela, please, as our next speaker.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. I'm very delighted to meet you all very easily via Zoom. Stephanie Larsen presented you our branch TV animation visual effects, and I will show you a little bit what we are doing on the creative and cultural industries sector. And I will share my screen.
Perfect.
Okay. The MFG Media and Film Society of Baden-Württemberg is the state agency for cultural and creative industries. And we are, in fact, an institution of the state Baden-Württemberg and the Südwestrundfunk Broadcasting Corporation, which is quite an interesting set of partners. We promote film, culture, and the film industry. That was the sector Stephanie Larsen told you about. And we support the cultural and creative industries in the southwest of Germany with focus on freelancers. So we are not in charge for the big companies here in my sector, but for the small freelancers, entrepreneurs, and we are doing programs for this sector. The cultural and creative industries have a long tradition in Baden-Württemberg, and they are firmly established as an economic factor. Normally, you always think of cars and manufacturing when you think of Stuttgart, but we also have a very interesting creative industry with a turnover of around 27 billion euros a year, with 32,000 entrepreneurs and with a total of 230,000 employees. So it's quite significant for our state. The creative industries are also very important driver for other industries, for digitization and sustainable innovation. I will talk about later. So the strongest branch in Baden-Württemberg is software and games industry. We have the SRP, you might know. So this stands for a lot of turnover and employees, in fact. But we have other main branches like the press market, design and advertising market. The book market is quite strong, and the architectural market. What is interesting, I think it's the same thing in a way, is that many creatives work as designers outside the creative industries, for example, in the automotive industry, and so the turnover or the effect is much bigger than just looking at the creative industries for itself. So the total creative economy is 2.3 times as large as the creative industries alone. We don't have a sort of center like Munich or Berlin in Baden-Württemberg. We have a lot of regional hotspots in our state, which is quite interesting. So we have a very interesting scene, music scene in Mannheim with the Pop Academy. Then we have, as Stephanie told you, the film and media industry in Stuttgart. Then we have a hotspot for design in Pforzheim, and software and games in Karlsruhe region. Our programs are focused on, I told you already, on small companies and freelancers, and therefore we have an academy with a lot of workshops for all branches of the creative industries. And a new program we developed last year is the Developer Boost. It's a program for game developer, and they get a 6 months training, hard training on pitching, on legal things, on founding a company, and all these things which are really essential to have a company. And in the end, they make a pitch with publishers, real game, and look whether their games are bought or they present what they found out. So the next thing we are doing is funding. This is for film, cinema funding, and games. The side of the funding, we have special programs like Ideenstark and Ideentanke, with coaching programs, mentoring for people who have new ideas and want to see if the projects work, and in the end found a little company. For visibility of our branches, we travel to the Cannes Festival of Creativity and other events to present our branches. And as an example for events, we have the Thomas Strittmatter Award and the Berlinale, or a very nice Ideenstark Award ceremony where we invite all the creatives in Baden-Württemberg to see the best ideas of the year. A very new thing is our cross-innovation initiative, Creadigol. I will tell you later. What is very successful are our networking events for the branches, and not only physically but also digitally. Like now in Corona times, we had to do it digitally, and it was a great success. Many people came together. Networking was really good functioning. So we have the Open Stage Games BV. That means that all the game developers of our country or state meet 4 times, 5 times a year. They share their ideas. They share when they look for team members, when they have questions. It's a very vivid scene, and it's good to have them all together. Then we have a special event for journalists of radio, TV, and newspaper. They meet regularly, and we find that digitization bring all the media closer together. So there are many topics they have to discuss. And we have this wonderful partnership with Cluster in Cardiff with Sarah Pepper. And we started with a very, very beautiful little event, Dance Digital, where we presented dance companies from Wales and from Baden-Württemberg. And it was a wonderful meetup we had last month. We have 2 booths, one at the Frankfurt Book Fair for startups who present their new ideas for the book market, and we are every year we're at the Gamescom and present our game developers with their new games and projects. Yeah, cross innovation becomes more and more important, and also sustainability is the big issue. So we bring both together in our Creativals initiative, where we want to develop sustainable innovation with game mechanics for small and medium companies. So we are thinking sustainability and digitalization together for new products, for new services. And we do this by motivating game and experience design mechanisms from innovation. I think that's a new idea, to bring all these mechanisms to smaller company to find playful innovation, in fact. So these companies have the possibility to engage creatives as translators for technical innovation into a good user experience, which is really critical, not having only the focus on technique, on VR and AR, but having the focus on a good user experience. I will give you an example for cross-innovation cooperation. This is the joint venture for a lifetime repair service between the outdoor specialist VD and the agency for interactive application, Lightshape, and the repair platform, iFixit. So when you buy a new shirt, you don't have to throw it away. You can fix it, and you get all the information to fix it by VR, video, or whatever, a film. And so you have a lifetime shirt instead of buying a new one. And I think it's quite nice that VD is doing this now and looking for more sustainability. Then we have a lot of best practice collaboration for good health and well-being. We presented them on our last conference. Here we want to show that game design, VR, and game mechanics can help very much in the health sector to increase resilience or to support patients and to support rescue services, in fact. And there's a wonderful example for a rescue saw VR for rescue services. They are training the handling of a saw when there are emergency situations, and they don't, they know it afterwards because they did it in VR and don't have to practice in real. And the other one is a nice collaboration between a games developer, Zeitland Media, and a medtech company, Xenius AG in Heilbronn, and they developed a sustainable learning solution for extracorporeal ventilation of patients. This was, in fact, a Creadigol's initiative project, and we are very proud of it. And the third thing we are doing is we are just launching a games hub for health and life science in Heidelberg, and there are interdisciplinary teams, and they develop serious games for training and therapy. And we think this might be a very nice boost for the sector. We will see next year how it works out. So that's our slogan. We make it possible. You find my contact, and thank you so much for listening to me.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Angela. And I think we make it possible. That does seem to be very appropriate. So that everything was covered, I think, in what you do there. So that was a lot to take in, but that was so interesting. Thank you so much for taking the time to tell us all about it today. And if anyone has any questions for Angela, please could you put them in the chat? I'm going to pick them up after our next speaker, because we've got our last two speakers are a little bit pressed for time. So that they're not sitting there feeling stressed, I'm going to put them on first, and then we will pick questions up if that's okay. So thank you very much, Angela. We may return to you. Are you sticking around for the talk at the end for networking? Brilliant. We can pick back up with you then. Thank you, Angela. Pete, who kindly has said I can introduce him however I like, but I will try to go with XR Network from Berlin-Brandenburg is our next speaker. And Peter, over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. First of all, hi, oh, wait a minute. I've got an echo. So thank you so much for inviting me. I'm Peter Lawrence. I run the Members Network Virtual Reality Berlin-Brandenburg, long title. But the funny thing is, in a former life, I was actually a trade and investment advisor at UKTI or DIT or IST or however it's called now. So I actually in creative and tech. So I had a lot to do also with Wales, and you guys gave me a lot of good competition, I have to say. So thank you. Well, now I'm in Germany, in Berlin, and I will now try to share my screen. Hold on. So let me see. Can you see that? Can you see a nice wavy man or like handshake man?
Okay. Ready to shake his hand.
And now the next one as well?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, good. It works. Fantastic. So, yeah, the VRBB, we are in XR, well, what is now called XR or extended reality, because we are throwing around with so many different names like virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and people got tired, and now we just call it XR. And we are from Berlin and Brandenburg, which we always call the capital region. You can see it here on the so we're kind of the, compared to other speakers, we are the northeast of Germany. We are 5 years old, and currently we are about 85 members. So from some really big heavyweights like Microsoft and Deutsche Telekom, kind of the equivalent of BT, a lot of SMEs, but also a lot of interesting startups who do completely crazy, interesting things. Our region has a big tradition in filmmaking and also in storytelling. So we have the film studio Babelsberg here in Brandenburg. So we focus on media and storytelling for entertainment, but also for industry products. To be really blunt, entertainment is very interesting, but there is more money in the industry. So that's why we actually do both, because both industries do need storytelling and how you address people. We have actually a lot of partnerships across Germany and Europe. We recently joined the newly founded XR for Europe initiative. We're working closely together with the EDF VR, which came up previously, the guys in Cologne. And let me say next one. Actually, does this thing show? I just, sorry, put it away here. So what is our goal? Our goal is pretty much follows a traditional business development process. Although, you know, this whole VR thing has been around for quite a while. I mean, strictly speaking, since '75, but still a lot of people know the term, roughly know what it is, but not exactly. So we are working a lot on creating visibility. What is this XR thing? And as a next step, we are creating enthusiasm for it. Because, I mean, I can talk now for 3 hours about, and then show slides about VR. You will all go, huh? Or I can put, you know, a set of VR glasses on you, and after 3 minutes, you will go, yep, got it, understood. So that's why is this process of creating visibility for the technology, but also the enthusiasm is very important, because only then will people say like, oh, this does solve interesting problems for us, and we can employ it and use it in our business model, in future business models. So the next step of this process of what we're doing is to create connections between our members, between other organizations. So that's why I appreciate today quite a bit, between academia, between funding applications. So we kind of sit a little bit in the middle like a spider and really try to bring people together and get them to talk. Of course, our long-term goal is to create projects, to create interesting things that make money. Because, I mean, all our, you know, members, well, they have to pay the salaries. So that's the big long-term goal. Let's see what comes next. So how do we do that? Well, for the past year, we've done a lot of online work. No other way. But for example, just last month, we had our annual VR Now Awards. So this is, you know, I wish I could say it's a little bit like the Oscars. It's a lot smaller, obviously. But what we do is we invite everyone from around the world, say like, send us your projects. We had a really, really interesting international jury this year, and we had 6 categories. What I'm seeing now in the especially interesting in entertainment, that's something special in German. No, it's my typing. And we also did a, well, holy shit awards. There's no other way of saying it, because this is precisely a category where we said like, you watch an experience, you put on the glasses, you see it, and your reaction is, good Lord, I mean, this is just overwhelming, holy shit. So that was quite well perceived. And an interesting, the grand prize this year was now a project called Kusunda, which was filmed in Nepal, which is about an extinct language spoken there. And it sounds a bit dry, and it was actually, when you watch it, it's about 20 minutes. It was super touching because these guys traveled there, did 3D mapping of the entire environment. It was like you are in Nepal. So this is, we do this actually to serve our goal of creating visibility, to get people to see the things. And we actually streamed this free on YouTube so that actually a lot of people could participate, and there was no technical hurdle, or you didn't need any VR glasses. I also like very briefly touch on examples what we're doing. So for example, one of our flagship projects is, it's called VoluCap. It's a volumetric capturing studio. So what this thing does, it's actually basically like a rotunda, like a round room that you see here, which is kind of like 4 meters in diameter, which is surrounded by lights and cameras, and you can capture human beings in full interaction with all the details, with their movements, their facial expressions, down to every individual hair. And then you've got a 3D model of a human being moving around and stuff like that, which is super interesting because a previous speaker meant, like, for example, virtual reality fire training, which is very cool because you don't have to send people into the fire. What we are doing here with VoluCap is, for example, right now, they recently just showed Matrix, with Keanu Reeves. And so, not sure how much I can tell. Basically, he was captured, and then you can do a lot of things with the 3D model, fully animated of him, and you can throw him into any dangerous situation that you like, because it's a 3D animated model, not of the real person anyway. And I mean, my job is pretty cool because, hey, you get to meet people like Keanu Reeves. Cool. Another example is it's actually a game. It's called Pagan Peak. It's actually very scary virtual reality experience where you have to try out a few things, which was developed by one of our members, Another World. And it's a super immersive experience. I mean, you put that on, you dive into another world, and it's scary, entertaining, really, really wonderful. So just two, I mean, I could go on and on, but there's a limited amount of time. So there are these two projects, and all of this kind of the awards, the online work, the project promotion is really kind of to get it out there. And of course, we also like to work with other regions, companies. Kind of our goal is kind of like, first we capture Berlin-Brandenburg, then Germany, then Europe, and then the world. We are currently kind of in the European stage. So if you need kind of, when it comes to filmmaking, entertainment, storytelling competences, please feel free to contact me. I will post my email in a moment in the chat. Do you have another slide? No, I've got the big question. Any questions for me slide. So I will now try to figure out how to stop this. Yes, all done.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Peter. Excellent presentation. As I know you need to leave, and because our next speaker also needs to leave in 10 minutes, I'm going to skip the questions if that's all right with you. However, please do drop your email in the chats, because I think there are a few opportunities for collaboration that I can guess from knowing who we have in the chat. So I think this is only the beginning, hopefully, of our network and yours collaborating.
Please do contact me. Apologies that I need to jump out, but it's kind of like I've got a 5 o'clock coming up. So please do contact me. Happy to talk to you, and have a wonderful event, an online meeting.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Peter. And Sarah, sorry to keep you waiting till the bitter end. I know you've got to leave at 4, but over to you. Would you like me to share your PowerPoints for you?
Sure, yeah, please do, Emily. Thanks. Yeah.
No problem. Let me get that up and then give me a shout. I've got too many windows open. There we go. Check the sound. And then you just say next when you want the next one.
Perfect. Thank you. Oh, perfect. So good afternoon, Prynhawn da pawb, and thank you very much, Diolch yn fawr iawn, for the invitation to talk as part of this session. I thought this was a really brilliant session pulling together. I mean, we were never going to have enough time for all those wonderful speakers to share their expertise and insights, but how wonderful that Wales, and from our colleagues in North Wales, are making connections throughout the world and, you know, positioning all of the exciting activity within Wales to share without, and also to make connections with others elsewhere across the globe. So I'm Sarah Pepper. I am Director of Creative Economy at Cardiff University, and I work, amongst other things, for an initiative, a project called Cluster, which is about developing the creative cluster here in Cardiff and the region to create a culture of innovation. So this is all about developing our innovation ecosystem here to create a pipeline that enables the development of great R&D activity to create new products, services and experiences in the media, in the screen industries and the news industries. In most specifically, we're talking about a cluster here. So we're talking about the Cardiff Capital Region cluster. But I think it's really important to say that, you know, Wales is a relatively small nation. So actually from a geographic perspective, and the way that we are connected, whilst this work focuses on the cluster here, we have partners and we fund activity across Wales because of the nature of the media sector and how it's connected. So it's a 5-year programme that started in 2019 and we run through till 2023 to develop all of this innovation activity. Next slide, please, Emily. Diolch. Oh, you might need to press enter again. I think, there we are. Okay. So in terms of the cluster here, the Cardiff region cluster, it's home to a number of world-class broadcasters, lots of high-end TV and film production, and all sorts of really exciting titles, I guess, that have been produced here that will be going out across the world. It's not just that they're being distributed and watched in Wales. A number of those are being commissioned by organisations outside of Wales and also shared on networks outside of Wales too. We have a population of around 360,000 in the city. The region is larger, somewhere up to 2 million. And we have a significant number of businesses in the region, about over 1,500, all contributing to the activity that we're talking about in terms of media production. Thanks, Emily. Oh, sorry. And again, there we are. Okay, so to date, we've funded 106 R&D projects. That's funding into 87 companies. Some of those projects have had extensions or additional activity, but 106 R&D projects to develop new products, services, and experiences in the screen industries. And that means we've invested over £3.25 million into those R&D projects. And around £1 million of additional wraparound support around intellectual property development, legal advice, business support, and so on. So quite a significant investment in the cluster here. Okay, thanks, Emily. Now, a key ambition for the whole of the cluster programme, it's funded by UK government, the Creative Industries Cluster Programme. A key ambition is for the clusters that are funded, we're one of 9, to develop international opportunities, networks, connections, and so on. And Cluster takes this activity really seriously. You've heard from, I know Gerwin was talking earlier from Creative Wales's approach, and probably other colleagues within Wales about that really important focus that we see on engaging with international partners, and Cluster is absolutely firmly committed to that. We want to increase the number of collaborations we have and bring what's happening locally into connection with what's happening nationally and what's happening internationally. We want to support collaborations, not just between businesses, but to bring in our university partners from other clusters and the partners we have here, encourage all sorts of engagement and collaboration, and find ways to disseminate the results. Because I think it's not just about, I mean, that's why this event is really inspired. It's not just about doing that international engagement, it's about sharing the things that you find. So one of our key aims here is at the start of Cluster was to develop 10 new international partnerships. Now, to date, partnerships or networks, to date, we have actually developed 11. So we're hitting over our KPIs, but there's lots that we've learned along the way. And actually, this was never about high scores and, you know, getting the most number of partners. It It was about developing really meaningful partnerships. And if we could go on to the next slide, Emily, I've got some nice photos here, including one, of course, with our First Minister, Mark Drakeford, with one of our colleagues out in Japan. These photos are sharing a number of meetings that we've had with different international colleagues of those 11 partners that we have engaged with, some of whom were on the call today. So wonderful to see Angela in MFG Baden-Württemberg. That was a really wonderful launch event of that partnership last month, although we have been talking to one another for about 2 years. So the picture here I'm sharing of the Zoom call is very appropriate of what's been happening in the last couple of years, where we've actually been able to really advance a lot of this international work by virtue of being on digital. So rather than us getting on an aeroplane to go and talk and start relationship building, we've done a lot of that online, and I think that's been really advantageous. So we have all of those partnerships set up. And I think for us in the next phase, the key is about really maximizing them. Because I suppose it's one thing to identify partners and agree that you have a potential to work together. It's a whole other thing to actually have really engaged and beneficial outcomes that benefit all partners. So I guess if Cluster's story is one to tell, we have been very fortunate in finding partners that we want to engage with, and that ranges in countries across the world, including Germany, as I've mentioned, also Norway, France, Ireland, Japan, the USA and Canada. But also then thinking about how we can maintain and really enable and supercharge those partnerships to give us the maximum opportunities from them. So I guess my last slide, if I may, Emily, is about top tips. And I guess everybody on this call will have experience in this and will have their own thoughts. I thought maybe a way to wrap up was about sharing some insights from what we have found were absolutely key things to think about to make sure these partnerships would work. There's probably more. And in fact, even when I'm reading them, I know there are more to add. But if I just run through those to finish off, I think one thing that we've learned when we've been having these very rich conversations with potential partners and then organizations where we have actually engaged in a partnership is about really understanding a clear purpose for the partnership and agreeing a set of outcomes for all partners. That is not to be underestimated and is so key to get made clear at the very start or as early as you can to work through that so that everybody knows what they're aiming for and everybody knows what they might be able to expect from it. So everybody's got that kind of clear picture, cleared shared picture. I suppose rules for engagement sort of connects with that and follows on, which is, how are you going to make the partnership work? Is that something where you'll be in contact every week, or is it something where you might contact each other every month? When you do connect, who will be on the calls? How will the calls run? How will you make decisions for the kind of activity you're going to do? So I think understanding those ground rules is really fundamental as well. My third top tip is about agreeing methods of communication. You see, it naturally follows on from number 2. But again, how often is that to happen? Who will contact whom? And who will take them responsibility for, sharing minutes and action points and communicating not just to the core team that are engaged in the partnership, but the wider group of stakeholders about what's happening. I feel that's very important. Naturally flowing from there is a point about roles and responsibilities, who in the partners is involved and responsible for what. Often we're all doing other jobs as well as engaging and enabling the partnerships. So it's really important to understand, where those responsibilities lie. And then I guess my 5th tip is about a number of things really, which is about ambition and vision. So really to try and encourage and find the best opportunities by virtue of being, the partners being greater, the sum being greater than the whole, that sort of expression. So, trying really to understand each other's environments and then push on to set something that you might do that will be different, that will change something, that will have a level of ambition and vision, but also amongst everything, remaining flexible in what you're doing, because operating environments change. We've all seen that a lot in the last 18 months. And I think we all need to be as flexible as possible and understand, the different cultures and environments that people are working in, so that we can come out with the best outcome. And then I suppose the other thing, I didn't put this as a top tip, but is making time, having time and making time for this work is very, very important. It's not an addition. It's not an easy thing to make work. For these sorts of international partnerships and international working to work well, it's really thinking about time commitment alongside all of the other top tips. So diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you once again. Happy to answer any questions, or Emily, you might need to encourage everyone to keep moving on with another speaker.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. Round of applause, sorry, for Sarah, I forgot. Excellent. And let me check my chat and see if I had any questions. No, nothing's popped up. So I think what we might do, I know we're at the time we're going to start networking, is jump into the talks by companies then, because I think this is quite important to do before we start doing the networking, is to find out who else we have here and the kinds of companies that we have to network with. So if you do have any questions, don't let that put you off, pop them in the chat. We will bring them back up afterwards. But if not, then thank you very much, Sarah. And I'm aware you have to go to another meeting in 3 minutes as well, so I will let you go. Excellent. Thank you very much. So our next talks are sort of 3 to 5 minute talks from a different range of companies within the creative digital sector. And I won't be taking questions between them. We'll just hear from them one after the other. And then hopefully when we get to the networking, that's when you can ask your questions and encourage you to talk to each other. So we will begin with Manon House, please, from Pontio. And Manon has a video which has asked me to share. So she's going to put the pressure on me to begin with to remember to share the computer sound. Yep, there we go. So we're going to start with this video on Pontio, which give me a thumbs up if you can hear it once it starts playing. That would be great. Thank you very much for sharing that video with us. Many of those performances I was happy to have seen live or seen online as well, so some of them were familiar. Manon, could I ask you to say a few words then about Pontio and the relevance to the networks here today?
Yeah, so I'm Mana Naust, and I'm here on behalf of Pontio. And I thought before I try to explain the range of creative events that go on inside the building, it would be easier to show you the video. But we're part of Bangor University, and we're the Arts and Innovation Centre. And I'm part of the creative team who host and arrange a wide range of cultural events: theatre, film, music, dance and art. But also within the building, we have the Students' Union and also the Fab Lab, which is all to do with new technologies and innovation, similar to what M-SParc have going on Anglesey. And my specific role is the creative coordinator of public spaces. So I put on exhibitions in the public spaces, installations. And what I try to do is to merge different creative disciplines and kind of dissolve those boundaries. Often the installations and exhibitions correspond to performances that are happening in the theatre, or projects happening elsewhere in the university as well. So, for example, we're currently working with the School of Music, who are celebrating their centenary this year. And so we've commissioned an artist to create an installation and projection in the main atrium of the building. And there'll be an orchestra and a choir performing within the public spaces as well. And of course, as we've all experienced over the last year and a half, we've been mainly focusing on digital projects. And we've actually hosted a lot of digital projects with an international element, such as our recent Cymru in Europe project, where we commissioned artists from Wales who are living in different cities in Europe, for example, Nuremberg, Leipzig, Berlin and Stockholm. So that was a really kind of interesting project. It's ongoing. And that was also in collaboration with Wales Arts International to connect with Wales in Germany. Another project was, which has just been released, is Triongl, where a photographer responded to commissioned works written by poets, writing in Welsh, in English and in Irish Gaelic as well. So that was another kind of international element. And finally, currently there's a co-production of Faust and Greta, which is run by Rownd and Theatr Genedlaethol Cymru. And it's a live streamed performance devised and performed by young people. And there are plans to take that to the University of Dortmund. So they would emulate the process of creating with the young people based on the original text from Goethe, but creating it as an experimental, a digital theatrical experience. So kind of taking advantage of contemporary forms of communication to perform traditional theatre pieces. So yeah, we're really keen to nurture international partnerships in Pontio, and it's great to be part of an event like this to start opening doors. So thank you.
Brilliant. Diolch yn fawr, Manon.
Yeah.
I did see Faust a Greta as well. I really enjoyed it. So seeing that taken to a national stage and seeing where that goes will be really exciting as well. Excellent. And then on to the next then, as we're having flash talk, straight over to you, Anna, please, from Animated Technology. Anna's actually just downstairs to where I am in the building today. Over to you.
Thanks, Emily. Can everybody hear me?
We can, yeah.
I'm on somebody else's desk at the moment, so we're all hot desking around the room, so it's all a bit awkward trying to figure out microphones and audio and all of that stuff. Hello everybody, I'm Anna Burke, one of the co-founders and directors of Animated Technologies based in M-SParc, Anglesey in North Wales. Our company pretty much says what it does, kind of animates technology. So we are a digital agency that covers animation, VR, AR, and sort of immersive applications. Anything you could use animation CAD for in a creative way. We like to use our creative brains to come up with interactive elements that can do that for companies. So the industries that we mainly work with are tech companies. And I think we feel we've sort of naturally gone into that field because tech can be quite boring, depending on the sort of tech that it is, or it can be quite super techy. So, you know, only the boffins know what it is or how it works. My dad is a chief engineer. He is one of those people that constantly talks to you rather than with you, shall I say. My other co-founder over there is just laughing because that's my husband as well, because he knows him as well. So our creative field really sort of visualizes the complex with technology. So within this talk that we've got, we have done work with other clients outside of the UK. Namely, we've worked with a Norwegian company called Tidal Sales, which was to illustrate and highlight their tidal energy product, machine or something you would call it, process. So where you get energy from the sea, you can still get energy from rivers as well, and sometimes that energy can even be a better source of energy because it's not as harsh or aggressive or turbulent with storms, etc. So the premise of that video that we created for them was to really illustrate the how it can be used around the world. Most continents have got lots of good estuaries that they can use it in. It's obviously renewable energy, which is a good tech industry to be in as well. So one of the some other projects as well that we've worked on, we're working currently with a company in Ireland, in Dublin, a company called Shirkin Technologies. I'm going to have to read what they do because this is in the development stage when we're talking about visualization and getting storyboards. So they've got a machine that is a microfluidic plasma bonding machine, which is super techy, and I don't fully understand it yet because I had to talk to somebody about it, my production manager. But that's the whole point of what we do, is that we can translate the complicated into something that is easily digestible for investors, for shareholders, for marketing purposes, for sales purposes, for education, for training. So it's got lots of different applications, and we're going to be using our skill set to and take that expertise that we've got working with technical companies into the sort of the AR and the VR side of things as well. So I feel like I've waffled a bit, I've gone off a bit, I didn't have a script, so if there's any questions, I'm sure people will ask me.
That was perfect, Anna. Thank you very much. I think we picked up a bit of Tom's meeting there as well, which also sounded interesting. So obviously lots going on in the office today.
We're sharing. There's two meetings going on. Sorry.
Oh, brilliant. If you can stick around for the networking, I think there's definitely some chance for speaking to some of the companies who've already presented, because I heard a lot about what you do. Animated tech has been picked up in a few of the others as well, so definitely room for collaboration, hopefully. If you can stick around for that, hopefully you'll make some new connections from today. Thank you, Anna. And we quickly move on then to Red Shoe, where I believe Red Shoe. It's been a long presentation, hasn't it? Red Shoe, I'm very sorry, Maggie. Over to you for the next presentation.
Díomh gur raibh míle maith agaibh as ochtan deishartum leart levinjov. Thanks very much, everybody. I'm calling in from, it's like the Eurovision now, from West Waterford in Ireland. It's a company called Red Shoe Productions, and we're in the Gaeltacht area of Onrine. So I'm looking out at the sea and people heading in swimming for the last 2 hours. So I'm getting itchy feet already. So we have a company based in Belfast as well, Red Shoe Multimedia. We make mainly arts and music programming for TG Cahir, which is the Irish language national broadcaster, RTE, and Sky Arts, anyone that will take our money and that will allow us showcase the best of Ireland's creativity. I suppose if you can give us money, we'll make artists shine and do what they do best. And we believe that that is really, really important communication. And I suppose it adds to the landscape of anyone's country and our soul. I have a small 30-second clip to show you of a long-running arts show that we did for many years that won an IFTA with Gigi Carr as well, called Immel, and I suppose that would be the cornerstone of everything we do. So if it works, I'm not great on technology, it'll be great crack. I ripped it off YouTube this morning where it was an ad, so let's see how it goes. It's 30 seconds, so you'll be definitely able to stay awake for it. And I think it might be, can you see anything there now?
Not yet, no.
Yes, okay. Can you see now?
No, I don't know if you've got share screen, so at the bottom it should let you click share screen and then choose what you want to share and then click share, and then it should show us.
Let me see.
It might have a mind of its own, we'll see.
It might. Let's see the video. Does it show? If not, don't worry about it. No, it's not going to show.
No.
Anyway, you're going to have to go on. It's not worth playing around. You'll have to go onto our website or that. But we're currently doing a show with Imelda May for Sky Arts, the Irish singer-songwriter from Dublin. And that's funded by Sky Arts and Tourism Ireland. And it's really looking at, I suppose, some of our great artists, from James Joyce to Samuel Beckett, Colm Tóibín, and all the living artists as well. And then we also are doing Gradam Ceol for Gigi Carr, which is a live music awards show. And we work with Northern Ireland Screen with that, as well as Belfast City Council. And it's broadcast on Gigi Carr. And again, it's music and arts and creativity. So that's, I suppose, what we do. And we love collaboration. And artists in Germany, Wales, Ireland, or anywhere are more than welcome to work with us. And we would only love to showcase our great creators from an arts discipline. So if there's any questions or networking, I'm open for it. So sin méid a hála rágamsa is stocha and you'll fuck me for féin in a shake. That's all I have to say for now. And Gurv Míle Mágaibh, thank you all for the presentation. It was very insightful and a great seminar. Gurv Míle Mágaibh.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you, Maggie. Definitely some conversations to be had in the networking session around that then. Thank you so much for your time. We go over then to Kian as our next speaker, and Kian's going to speak about something a little bit different, which is the comic book industry in Wales. Thank you, Kian, for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. I had considered trying to say hello in Welsh and then decided not to. And then I've just watched Maggie say hello in Irish, which I also can't do. So you're going to have to forgive me. But yeah, so thank you. I'm a comic artist based in South Dublin in Ireland. So I work almost entirely for DC Comics and for Marvel, who hopefully you may have heard of. So I draw characters like Batman and Catwoman, Superman, Spider-Man, that kind of thing. It's a pretty cool job, certainly for a job where you have to work remotely. But because even though you're working remotely, it's part of an international team making the comic. Because my clients are based in the States, but also as an artist, there's an entire global network of us spread across the globe. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, the work is pretty cool. It's varied and it's quite challenging. So there's an axiom in this industry that there's no budget in comics, which means, unfortunately, as the artist, you'll often get a script that says something like, we open on 10,000 horses riding across the galaxy and you have to draw it. So unfortunately, there's no way out of that. But yeah, it has led to working with some really cool people and some very interesting writers. So I've had the luck to work with people like Paul Dini, who you might know from writing most of the Batman the Animated Series that we would have probably seen growing up. He created Harley Quinn, the character. And it has also led to me being brought into some adjacent fields where I worked with Joss Whedon, the director of a couple of the Avengers films on his last HBO show. So it kind of like drags you into a couple of different places. Yeah, so I thought I might just give like a really quick background on how I ended up in it. And then just a really quick rundown on how comics get made, because I think there's still quite a little bit of mystery over how these things end up on shelves. But I have not always worked in comics. So my background, I studied graphic design, which I didn't really like. And then I ended up working in advertising for about 8 years, which I did really like, which definitely has informed the way I approach the work that I do now. But the reason why I point out that I didn't go straight into comics is because I think it's also important to know that your career can kind of take a couple of different left turns before you end up where you want to be. Yeah, so I've been working now full-time for Marvel and DC, predominantly for about three and a half years. And the average work week is, it's not quite the same as it was when I was working in advertising. One of the nice things, as I pointed out, is that I work remotely, so I don't have to be in an office, and I don't really deal with clients as much as I used to, which is quite nice, I have to say. The way a comic gets made from beginning to end generally is that while I'm sitting here, I would get an email from an editor that would represent one of these companies, and they would ask me whether I was free to take on a comic. Now, your average comic is about 20 to 22 pages. You would normally try to draw a page a day. So you're usually given about 5 weeks to do a full project. And so when they reach out to you to see if you're free, what they're doing is essentially booking you out for the next few months. So it is freelance work, but it's relatively steady once the main titles start coming in. So what happens is you say yes, and you're sent a script. And a lot of people ask me generally, how does the whole process start? And it starts an awful lot the way shooting a film would start. So a writer will break a story down across 20 pages. The average comic page would look a little bit like anywhere between 5 to 9 panels. And each of the panels will be essentially a story beat. And the reason why that's relevant to me is because once I start to work on the layouts, I am essentially the director, and I'm in charge of the lighting, and I'm in charge of the characters acting, which might sound a little bit strange, but if you think about it, Spider-Man doesn't move the same way that Batman does, and you're supposed to get that across in their body language and stuff like that. So you're in charge of all of those things. So each of those panels then needs to be something that I lay out. The thing that I need to bear in mind as I work more than anything else is how to lead the reader's eye through the page. So as we know, we start up in the top left, we read down to the bottom right, and it's up to me to make sure that all of the panels are making your eye go the whole way down to the bottom. So the nice thing is that once I have all of my layouts done and they're approved, I'm essentially left alone for the guts of 5 weeks to work, which is glorious. You're uninterrupted, and it's really just quite a lovely space to be in. The days can be quite long. You do tend to put in like a little bit over office hours, but it's in service of doing something that you love. And then once the 20 to 22 pages are submitted, they go to a colorist. While the colorist is working on coloring all of your pages, one of the letterers will be hired to put all of the speech bubbles all over the work and make sure that nothing's obscured. There's one last pass for the writer to take a look at the copy. And then when all of those pieces are brought together, it's sent in-house to the designers. They put the issue together. And then I'd say maybe after 3 months altogether, from the writer starting to me being engaged to all of the other pieces, it will end up on a shelf. And you get to go into a store and see your comics sitting on the shelf amongst all the other ones. And it's pretty cool. So yeah, it's there's a little bit of advertising, a push depending on whatever title you're working on. And the nice thing is as well that if you're part of a cool title, once it's gathered up again, it gets sold on as your graphic novel. So while I'm working on something, sometimes I'll get a ring on the doorbell, and UPS will drop me out a box full of graphic novels that I worked on that I'd forgotten about, which is always really cool. And yeah, so that's about it.
Thank you, Kian. That's so interesting.
If you've got any questions, I'd love to take them. So
perfect. If you have any questions, we will push you to do them in the networking so that you will all stick around. We've got one more company to speak, and then we can get down to the networking. Our next speaker will speak in Welsh. So just as a reminder, if you don't speak Welsh, to click interpretation and to choose English, and you will hear our next speaker in English. Felly drosodd I chi, Steffan, efo'r cefndir sydd wedi bod yn intrigio fi trwy'r sgwrs yma.
Ie, dim fi nath o. Bore prawn da iddyn nhw. Na'n sgynnu sgript na byd, ond na'i just sôn yn fras amdan cwmni dwi weithio, sef Galeri Caernarfon Cyf. Da ni'n fenter gymdeithasol sydd wedi sefydlu yn Gaernarfon. Da ni efo model busnes, neu mi oedd gen ni model busnes cry iawn, lle da ni'n creu 80% o'n incwm yn hynna'n drwy weithgaredda masnachol, ond ers Covid, da ni yn dibynnol, bron yn llwyr dibynnol ar grantiau bellach, tan fydd yr sefyllfa yn gwella. So, da ni wedi gorau ail edrych ar y ffordd, da ni'n gweithio ag ail edrych ar pwrpas a lle mae'r cwmni mynd. So, yn rhannol, dyna di'r call-out, really, o ran cydweithio a creu partneriaethau tymor hir o ran datblygu a cynnig mwy o gyfleoedd yn lleol, yn rhanbarthol, yn genedlaethol ac yn rhyngwladol. Mae gennym ni trac record o wneud prosiectau yn rhyngwladol. Da ni wedi gweithio efo Black Armband o Awstralia. Da ni wedi gweithio efo cwmnïau America, Canada. Ond beth sy'n mwyaf atyniadol i ni, rili, wedi gweithio efo cyrff sydd yn gweithio mewn ieithoedd llefrifol. Mae gennym ni eto brofiad o weithio efo cwmnïau Iwerddon, enghraifft Fidget Feet, a da ni hefyd yn cydweithio efo sinemâu a canolfannau yn Oban, yn yr Alban. Ond yr matha yna o gyfleoedd, sa'n ni'n rili licio edrych ar o ran datblygu prosiectau o ran yr ieithoedd llefrifol sydd yn cael chwarae teg a gwrandawiad, a mae yna lot o ddefydrwydd rhwng yr ieithoedd yma a gysylltiadau sy'n licio edrych ar hynny. Dyna fo gyda fi.
Briliant, diolch yn fawr iawn i chi, Steffan. Reit, fydden ni'n mynd i fewn i'r rhwydweithio nesaf, felly just cyn i ni wneud hynna, mwyn i gael stopio recordio a cau y digwyddiad, dwi'n mynd i roi chi nôl i Garfield sy'n mynd i ddiolch i bawb a cloi y sesiwn yma i ni. Diolch, Garfield.
Oh, thanks, Emily. Diolch. I'll close in English because I'll keep it very brief. I've learned so much today. It's been wonderful, and thank you so much to all the contributors for sharing their experiences and their vision. And I really hope that opportunities will grow from today's event. It's been really good. The one thing I did learn was that there's an award in Germany called the Holy Shit Award for people who heard Peter's presentation, which I thought was brilliant. Prydery's come up with a translation in Welsh, which is Nefoedd Wen, which I think almost creates the same thing. I would like to give that Holy Shit Award today to Emily and the team, because my God, I don't know how they've held this together and actually put this wonderful event together for us. So much information, really well organized as well. So diolch yn fawr iawn I bawb. Thank you all so much. Please carry on with the networking. I'm going to have to leave now for another meeting, but well done and thank you all so much.
Brilliant, diolch yn fawr iawn, Garfield.